A cordial greeting. Today is Thursday, August 28, 2025. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia speaking. August will soon end, which historically tends to be the second most active month of the season. Remember that the peak of the season began on August 20th and we already had the formation of the impressive Hurricane Erin that managed to strengthen into a Category 5 hurricane as it passed just northeast of the Caribbean. And after several days in which we were monitoring Hurricane Erin as it moved over the open waters of the Atlantic, we also saw the formation of Tropical Storm Gabrielle, which formed in the subtropical Atlantic and remained fairly weak, without representing a threat to land areas, while the past few days have been quite calm. However, we will soon begin to monitor a new tropical wave that will come out of Africa. And although conditions are currently not optimal for cyclonic development, because we are in an unfavorable phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation, since it is the peak of the season, it is always important to be monitoring the tropical waves that come out of Africa, and also any low-pressure system that could develop toward the south and southeast of the United States. The important thing is that for the moment we do not have an imminent cyclonic threat. However, some weather models suggest that the next tropical wave that will come out of Africa may find marginally favorable conditions for development as it moves over the eastern tropical Atlantic during the next week. And this is why the National Hurricane Center has marked this area with a low probability of cyclonic development during the next 7 days. At 2 p.m. they maintain that probability at just 20%. And notice that the area of possible development during the next 7 days remains quite far from the Caribbean region, so really there is no reason to worry because we will have many days to monitor calmly. Let us now talk about the different factors that are favorable and unfavorable for cyclonic organization. First, see the latest update of the sea surface temperature anomalies which, across the main cyclonic development zone, on average remain above normal. And remember that this can help the formation of tropical cyclones, particularly west of longitude 45 degrees west, just as we saw with the formation of the powerful Hurricane Erin. So this is important because any tropical wave that manages to stay well toward the west could eventually develop more thunderstorm activity and have some type of cyclonic organization just as is normal during the peak of the season. And although at the moment the tropical Atlantic is being dominated by quite a lot of dry air that continues descending from mid-latitudes, the dry air is represented in this image by the brown colors. However, notice how during the next 7 to 10 days the moisture across the tropical Atlantic is expected to increase, and this could be a somewhat more favorable factor for the development of a tropical cyclone. And the next available name on the list is Gabrielle. Now then, we also have other factors that create unfavorable conditions for development. First, we are in an unfavorable phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation. And notice these reddish colors that represent conditions of atmospheric stability, which is a factor that hinders the formation of tropical cyclones. In fact, these conditions can persist during the next 2 weeks, and it will not be until mid-September when a favorable phase establishes over the Atlantic, once again opening an opportunity for a significant increase in cyclonic activity. In addition, this unfavorable phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation indirectly also helps the formation of some trough systems in the North and Central Atlantic. And as we can see in the projection of the American model, it is projected that by the end of next week we will have a fairly broad trough in the Central Atlantic, and this can generate strong wind shear that in the long term could represent unfavorable conditions for any tropical wave or tropical cyclone that moves through this area. In fact, notice that in about 10 to 14 days this trough moves back toward the southwest and therefore leaves strong wind shear near the northeast Caribbean. So any cyclone that moves through this area could be facing strong wind shear. However, if it manages to maintain a more southerly track, it could find somewhat more favorable conditions, because south of latitude 15 degrees north, the wind shear can be of lesser magnitude. We can see this wind shear in the projection of the European model ensemble members, where during the first week of September, represented in red toward the northeast and east of the Caribbean, it is possible that we will have strong westerly wind shear that may be protecting the area from any cyclone that manages to form in the tropical Atlantic. And notice in blue, just south of latitude 15 degrees north, the area where wind shear could be a little more favorable for development, which is why the best probabilities of development will be from any tropical wave that manages to stay to the south. In addition, these troughs that will develop in the North Atlantic can also have influences on the future track of any cyclone that forms west of Africa. For example, in about 8 to 9 days, the models project that the Bermuda high pressure will be very strong, while we will have 2 trough systems, one over the northeastern United States and another over the Azores Islands. This configuration makes the outlook or projection of a track very difficult, since a system that gains latitude near Cape Verde could have the opportunity to move over the subtropical Atlantic, while a system that remains weaker could be traveling more toward the west. So really at the moment it is impossible to know what its future track could be, although preliminarily the tendencies usually favor it having a track passing toward the northeast of the Caribbean. However, I repeat, these projections are subject to significant changes due to several troughs that will be developing during the next few days. This uncertainty in the track can be seen in the ensemble of the European model members. Notice the great dispersion of possible scenarios, and it is a clear example of why at the moment we do not know precisely what this track could be, although in general most of the members maintain a movement toward the west-northwest and with a bit of luck eventually taking a turn toward the subtropical Atlantic. Now then, we also have some members that have that more southerly track and that could increase the probabilities of development and strengthening. Remember that the wind shear is projected to be located in the northeast Caribbean, so it is no surprise that the members that have a more southerly track strengthen this tropical wave more. However, for the moment this scenario seems to be the least likely, but it is the reason why we will continue paying attention to the evolutions in the projections. Meanwhile, the ensemble of the American model members, some of them develop a tropical depression or tropical storm, but eventually as it moves toward the west-northwest, the vast majority dissipate it thanks to the wind shear that is found in this area. And this is repeated in the projection of the artificial intelligence model. Notice the great uncertainty in the different track scenarios. Some tracks quite far south, while others gaining latitude quite quickly and moving away from the Caribbean. So, in summary, the probabilities of development just west of Cape Verde seem to continue increasing during the next few days. However, any cyclone that forms in this area and moves farther west will probably be facing strong wind shear thanks to some troughs that will be developing in this area of the Atlantic. And although conditions may be marginally favorable for development, the reality is that they are not as favorable as the conditions that existed when Hurricane Erin formed. So it remains to observe calmly, especially to wait for the tropical wave to come out into the Atlantic to have a better outlook. And definitely, for the moment, we cannot talk about what its future track could be, although at the moment it seems that the favored track would be toward the west-northwest. So we will see how these projections change during the next few days, but for the moment there is no reason to worry. The important thing is that here at Hurricane Info I will continue to stay attentive to keep you informed, and this is why I invite you to give a like to this video. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you receive notifications of when I record new videos. I hope everyone has an excellent day. See you later.